And good evening, everyone, and welcome into Tigers Tonight. I'm your host, John Maddox, joined as always by the best co-host in all the land. We will start with our friend here, stone's throw away from me at the palatial Marley Manor here in Hernando, beautiful scenic crime-free Hernando, Mississippi. The man who's home this week for the first time since when, Larry?
1st of August, the last time I did not have to, at least one overnight stay. So, and look, we're on a record here. This may be a record. This is the third straight week I've actually done the show here. So, I am really excited because not only do we have 4 home games in a row for Memphis, but I'm on like a home streak myself here. So, maybe like the Tigers, I'm going to get on a winning streak.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, you're a winner, Larry. Don't ever let anybody tell you different. Our friend Bryan Moss up in our northern branch there. Bryan, you've already told us the low for Saturday morning. I think we really don't want to hear it down here.
44 degrees, I think. I got my TSR hoodie on. It's getting chilly. Leaves are changing. At least it's football weather somewhere.
It's got to be. Anyway, all right, so let's wrap up. The Tigers win on Saturday, 44-32 was the final score over Arkansas State, a very game Arkansas State team. The game didn't really play out, I think, like any of us kind of thought it would. We thought Memphis would build a big lead and would build a lead and Arkansas State would go away, but to their credit, they just never did. Just some key mistakes down the stretch, including Memphis keeping that turnover streak alive late with a 32-yard loss on a bad snap. And Jalen Allen recovered the fumble to make it 8 straight games for Memphis. They tucked it in one more time from there just to be sure. Bryan, your thoughts?
No, I thought it was, a pretty good game for Memphis. I mean, I have some little things I thought Memphis, can improve on. I think the coaching staff would admit that. I've been pretty critical of the offensive line and the running game. I'm still a bit critical, but hey, they got it going in the second half. So, I mean, kudos to them. But overall, I mean, you have to be satisfied with the way the fans, I think, were loud and proud. It sounded more than what was there. So definitely kudos to the Memphis fans that showed out Saturday.
Ryan Silverfield talked about that in his post-game presser. He said that the fans caused that last series to go awry for Arkansas State. Back-to-back offensive penalties, false starts, and then a terrible snap, which was also aided by, and hopefully we'll have a video later this week that will kind of discuss my cats, and 4 plays that really made a difference in the game. And one of the things, Larry, about that end sequence, where the bad snap happened, I thought it was interesting. Matt Barnes walked somebody up to the line that hadn't walked up in the previous 2 plays, and I think that caused the center to kind of rush the snap a little bit, and Blackman wasn't ready for the ball. But I was really impressed. Arkansas State made some plays, but I was really, really impressed with the Memphis defense on Saturday.
So we'll talk about the play in just a second. I want to go back to the crowd. So, and I don't want to get into this. God, we've been fighting this. How many people are actually there? One thing, I think the official attendance was 32,000. On the home side, it was packed. And I know we've all been to games when it was fairly sparsely attended. I mean, all of the concession stands were packed on the home side. So there was a large crowd on the home side. And it was really, really loud. And on that last series, it was extremely loud. And you could see Blackman, to your point, John, he walked up somebody between the guard and the center, which they hadn't done in the previous 2 plays. Blackman was looking at the receiver to try to get a hot route. Got to remember, this started 4th and 5, right? We started 4th and 5 for them. And the 2 the tackle and then the guard on the right side, I believe, both jumped. And so now you go to 4th and 15, and Blackman's looking at a hot route on the outside because he sees the linebacker step up. He's thinking, okay, I'm going to hot over the middle. Meanwhile, the center sees him raise his leg, and he thinks he's ready for the ball. and he snaps. And I went back and watched the play again today. That's exactly what happened. So, John, that's really good on your part to notice that linebacker comes up. And so now Blackman's thinking a hot drag route across the middle is what he's looking for to try to pick up the first down. But overall, your point on the defense was right on, especially the third quarter. Guys, this game should have been over in the third quarter because we held them to no points. We ran the ball really well in the third quarter. In fact, the one drive where we had the 2 sacks at the end that kind of killed that drive, that was the drive where I thought we were going to break the game open right there. And I'll add one more thing. That drive wore their defense down, and that's why we scored 23 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a factor. And, one other note from the game, I asked Coach Silverfield in the presser about I don't know, some people I guess didn't notice, but he pulled Noah Grant from kickoff duties and put Tanner Gillis in. And I asked about it. He said, you just can't have your kicker kicking it out of bounds. And I think Grant had done that twice in this game and 2 or 3 times in the previous 2 games. And that drives a coach crazy when you do little things like that. Jeb's also got a good point. They had a lineman get injured late, so they had to bring somebody in kind of cold off the bench. And and Coach said this best. He said, I don't know if there were 132,000 or 32,000 people. They were loud. And I can tell you that it was in the press box. It was as loud, with the exception of maybe the SMU game with Game Day a couple years ago and the AAC championship game. Although I was kind of down in the middle of that AAC title game, so I didn't really get to experience the crowd. But it was really loud. I went back and watched. It sounded great on TV. And, that's what home field advantage is all about, right, Bryan? Is having the crowd amped up and kind of willing you through at the end of a game when you need that little boost.
Yeah, and then not only does it, energize, the crowds, everyone's getting excited, but the players. You saw the players amped up, and that intensifies their game. So like we said, credit to the Memphis fans for making it sound way more. What was the final attendance? What was it, 35 something?
32, 396, somewhere in that ballpark. There were, well, I don't want to beat that ad nauseum as well. I'm like Larry, but there were way more than 32,000 people there.
Yeah, the way it sounded like 45, 50,000. So, yeah, just a great – and hopefully all those fans and then some, come back again for North Texas, this Saturday.
Yeah, just real quick, I'm definitely not going to get into this, but the ticket issues, I posted the picture from gate 4 of the line being, oh gosh, that had to be a 300 or 400 people long line. And it was like 5 minutes before kickoff because the band was doing pregame when I took that picture. But all the other lines, apparently everybody said moved pretty well and people got in. But again, this week, if you're bringing somebody new to the game, the digital ticketing process, I could not have been more pleased with how the parking process went. I showed the first person that I came up to, I showed him my pass. He said Silver Lot and told me where to go. And they didn't scan my pass until I got to the lot I was supposed to be in. And that was kind of everybody's concern is, okay, they're going to scan your pass to get you in. And then it's just going to be wild, wild west out there. But they did a really good job of traffic control. And other than that one gate, which wasn't staffed very well, I've been told, they had some scanner issues at that gate. But, again, this is a problem for how many years and how many venues for Memphis. But, all in all, I thought it went well. But just be sure to download those tickets and save them to your Google Wallet, your what do you crazy iPhone people call it? Is it the wallet? Do y'all call it a wallet as well?
It's Google Pay.
Well, Google Pay for us, but what about you crazy iPhone folks?
It's wallet. It's Apple Wallet.
Yeah, it's wallet.
Apple. Okay, yeah. As somebody said, all us Android people are known as is the green bubble. And that's in reference to text messaging.
So
but anyway.
Cool thing about that. So I have Apple Wallet, Apple Pay, whatever, and my wife has Google, your green bubble thing. And so when I come up, I scan mine, no problem. I just held my phone up, boom. She comes up and tries to do it doesn't work. And so she has to actually do the little barcode thing. And I was kidding her about that, clearly that Apple is much improved over Samsung because
All right, we're going to remove from stream right about now because I feel triggered here. I'm feel seen, as the kids would say. But all in all, seriously, in all seriousness, good job, good effort by everybody to get everybody in the stadium. It was a little slow at times, but I thought the crowd was great, and every player that sat at that podium, whether it was Tyler Murray or Seth Hennigan or Coach Silverfield, they all to a man said that the crowd is what kind of turned the tide of that game. But let's get more into the game a little bit here for a few minutes. Dave Barnett will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Dave is the voice of the Mean Green, and he'll join us at the bottom of the hour here. But Bryan, we talked about that running game. And Coach Silverfield said this. He said, what we can't plan on happening is we can't plan on being able to just kind of flip a switch and have a running game. But I thought Memphis, although in the second quarter, I think we all texted each other like, what is up? There was a 3rd and 8, I think, when we called a run. But, I think in some ways that pays dividends. I thought also, and I asked Seth about this, he did a great job on Saturday of just pulling down and going, when that's what the defense gave him. And I want to talk about one play in particular that paid dividends. But Bryan, I mean, the running game, while it was somewhat inconsistent, they get the go-ahead touchdown from Ducker late on a great play. I'm going to break that play down in some more detail in a separate video. But, just all in all, I thought the running game was better than probably it's been several times last year. I thought they just need consistency.
Yeah, I mean, starting off better would be great, but I mean, because we were texting, and I mean, I was saying that especially that first quarter, I'm like, man, this offensive line, these running backs, they're not getting off to a great start. I mean, you only had 29 yards in the first quarter, and the coaches, they talked about it after the game, and I think Coach Cramsey talked about it in the presser today after practice. The third quarter, they started defending the pass more. So there was less folks in the box. So, once Memphis saw that, they took advantage of it. And that's why you saw Memphis have over, 123 yards, in the third quarter rushing. I mean, they had 187 in the entire game and 123 were in the third quarter. Third quarter was 54. I'm sorry. 54 yards. Through the third quarter was 123. But in the third quarter by itself, it was 54 yards. So I mean, they took advantage of it, and you hear Coach Cramsey talk about this a lot. They want to take what the defense gives them. So if they're giving them pass, they're going to pass. If they're going to give them the run, they'll run. That's to me that's fine, but at some point, I think you're going to have a game plan and just be dominant. Dominate you what you can do. And I guess Memphis is not there yet, but they have the horses, that they have the horses to do it. I'm still waiting to see. So, yeah, but at least they got the running game going. So that's definitely a positive. And this weekend I think you'll see Memphis, really exploit the run because UNT is not that good, I believe, stopping the run.
Yeah, I posted that article earlier this week. I was stunned. They gave up 2 100-yard rushers last week to UNLV, and one of the guys had 229 yards on the ground, and he had 84 yards. So through 2 games. So they struggle a little bit against the run. But, looking back, and again, I'm going to break all this down in a separate video, but that Prieskorn, that first touchdown was caused directly by Seth's last couple of games pulling the ball down and running, because what happened was he did that little naked bootleg action, and when he sent Martin out on the wheel route, Arkansas State did a great job covering that, but you can see in this video that literally 5 guys turn and get their hips towards Seth, and then Prieskorn just kind of sneaks out and gets the catch and the touchdown. And Larry, that is something that we didn't see last year, and that is a way that Memphis's passing game gets even more dominant and more, they'll get more out of it is by, Seth being able to run the ball a little bit and keep guys honest.
Well, and to that point, later in the game, he actually pulls the ball and actually scores the touchdown on the boot. And so when you can do that, you put the defender in a really tough spot, especially. So one of the things about the goal line is everything gets compressed, right? Because you have, let's say you're on the 3-yard line where everything's now compressed into a 13-yard area. So if you as the defender have to defend the quarterback as a runner and as a passer, that makes that sort of opens up that offense in a way that it doesn't normally. We see that all the time in the pros, like Kyler Murray, for example, what he was able to do in the pros, which was, gosh, those 2 plays were awesome. But that's what you're talking about, John. You're saying, okay, he's extending the play, making you defend two spots on the field, right? You got to defend the pass, and then you got to defend him running. And you're right. The Prieskorn, he was able to sneak right behind those linebackers because they can't be in 2 places at one time, right?
Yeah, and the other thing about a quarterback being able to run is you have to make a decision as a coach at some point. You have to say, okay, well, we're just going to keep a linebacker to spy because we can't let him, get outside. And what that does, especially on the goal line, is now when you spread and you go 4 wide, you've got to keep a linebacker, that opens the middle of the field. So that's why I tell people all the time, it's the little things that happen earlier in the game that pay big dividends. My wife and I have this conversation all the time. It's like, why do we keep running up the middle? Because that's going to pay off, because that's how you hit play action. That's how you hit a little, we ran a little, didn't we run a little like zone option play with Seth pitching out to one of the backs there in the third quarter?
It was a read zone, yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. That's something we hadn't seen. We saw 2 or 3 plays like that. I was really impressed with Prieskorn, man. Coaches, Bryan, this. Coaches talked about him all off season. First couple games were like, yeah, I mean, he's doing fine, but man, he had, and on Ducker's run at the end of the game,
hell of a block.
Oh, he knocked that guy's lights out, Bryan. And I just thought that Prieskorn was kind of the difference in this game for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, and Memphis has had, I think Memphis is known as what, kicker you, running back you, and pretty quickly they're going to be known as tight end you, because it started with Joey Magnifico, then you had Sean Dykes, and now Prieskorn. I think Prieskorn, he's not there yet, but he can develop into a complete tight end. I think he needs to work on blocking a little bit more, but route running, pass catching, I think he's already there, and it's going to be exciting watching him this year.
Yeah, and it's tough. Larry's point, talking about defending that. Now when you have Prieskorn, you have your tight end who can go out, can stand up in the slot, can go out and catch the ball. He can block, he can chip a linebacker. Now that takes another weapon in the arsenal. So now as a defense, when you're down there and you see Prieskorn in the game, what do you do? Because now Seth can run a little bit. You've got Prieskorn who can leak out and make catches. He's not, although he did in this game, he's not a big post route guy that's going to burn anybody down the field, although he caught a nice skinny post for a touchdown. But it's just all about developing different weapons, because that makes Memphis really, really hard to defend.
I think one of the things that I would add to all this is that we have some guys out of the backfield, including Ducker and Martin, who can catch the ball. So if you look at the passing game, we went into the season with our wide receivers sort of being a question mark. I think in game 3, guys, I think we can say that, okay, we've got a fairly established 3-man wide receiver unit at this point. Rogers, Skates, and Ivory, right? And Rock Taylor had a great catch too in this game. But to me, those are your 3 main, and then you've got Prieskorn as your tight end, and then you've got your backs out of the backfield. I'm trying to think. Certainly we may have had more talent, and one person may have more talent, but that is a whole lot of really, really good talent coming out. And that's one of the reasons why we've had so much success throwing the football. And that's why they had to bring another safety in, which opened up the running game in the second half for us. And if that happens to if we're able to do that to North Texas, I'll say my prediction for later, but I think that's going to open up a lot of running, because you really saw that in the fourth quarter. Arkansas State's defense was gassed, and they were done by the end. That last drive, they couldn't have stopped us no matter what. I'm just telling you.
We could have been on our own 6 and they wouldn't have stopped us, much less theirs.
It would have been possible. Right.
Jeb, I knew he would chime in because I knew I would forget someone. Alan Cross.
Yeah, how could you forget him after all the talk about BYU earlier this week?
Here's something about the Memphis offense that I don't know if anyone realized, because I didn't realize it until just now looking at the stats. Memphis did not go 3 and out. They only went 1 3 and out last game. So, I mean, it shows you the progression and how much they're understanding the game plan and, just getting closer to a complete game.
2 things make life easy on a defense. Number 1 is pressure up front. That's first and foremost. And number 2 is your offense staying on the field. Those are 2 things that are going to help your defense more than any kind of scheme or anything like that. But just being able to get some pressure, which we did not do a great job of again, and being able to your offense staying on the field. So your defense, if they are a liability, which I'm not saying this defense is, then you can kind of cover that up by, not putting them out there for 48 minutes like we did in the first game. I think it was 43 minutes in the first game. You just can't do that and expect long-term success. But, other than one kind of busted play there, and again, I'll talk about this one later, but on the first Arkansas State touchdown, other than that, I thought the defense, did an okay job, because look, Blackman's a good quarterback. They've got some good players. They shut Champ Flemings down. That was the guy I was most worried about coming into the game. And I'm not looking at the numbers, but I don't think he had more than 2 or 3 catches for 6 or 7 yards. The kid's a 5'6" kid, and he's an absolute burner. But I just thought Memphis did a really nice job on him. And for the most part, they had some tackling issues that they do have to clean up. A lot of arm reaching because you're out of position. But, all in all, teams are going to make plays. The other team have FBS quality Division I scholarship players too. And, it's about doing enough to get off the field. And, again, Bryan, you may have the stats in front of you. I don't. Memphis
it was 3 receptions for 7 yards for Champ.
Yeah, 3 receptions. And then I thought Memphis did a fairly good job on third down after the first series or 2. I think Arkansas State was 5 of 6 on their first 3 series on third down. And I think Memphis kind of figured out what they were doing and kind of put the kibosh on that going forward.
I think they had a couple of 3 and outs. The other thing I want to add that I thought the Memphis defense did awesome this week, they kept Blackman in the box. They didn't let him escape. They didn't let him run. I didn't see him get out. I mean, he stuck. Now, I don't think we sacked him a whole lot, but he didn't get out and run. And I thought, especially on third downs, we chased him, we flushed him, and we made him either throw it away or he threw an incompletion. And you saw that consistently, especially in the third and fourth quarters. He could not get away.
Yeah, in the first half, Arkansas State was 5 of 7 on third down. Second half, only 2 of 7.
Yeah, we did such a good job on that. And I also, Jeb kind of segued me here. I was just about to mention, there are 2 things that you never want people on podcasts or TV shows to talk about: the offensive line and the kicker, because usually the only time you talk about those 2 people are when they do something bad. But
idiots.
Chris Howard that dude is just lights out, man. He is just ice in his veins. He does not care. He said that before. Look, I've played in the SEC before. There is no pressure that I see that I haven't seen before. And, other than some kickoff issues, we had issues where we didn't get it in the end zone. But, I actually asked Coach Silverfield about that. I said, how does that change the game? And he's like, it's everything. He said, when I know I have somebody to rely on, I can choose to be aggressive. And I thought that was interesting that, last year he kind of felt, I think, that he didn't have a choice. He had to be aggressive because the kicking game was so bad. But now that so far, we have somebody we can rely on, I think that takes some pressure off of the play callers, be it Cramsey or Ryan Silverfield or whatever. You can take some of the pressure off and then pick your spots to be aggressive.
I think more than anything, if you watch the way the game played out, especially in the fourth quarter, the only time that game, and by the way, did anybody hear? I mean, I know we had the fourth down with like 4 minutes to go when we were down by 1. But even then, I never really felt like we were going to lose this game. I never had a feeling like that. And I just wanted to mention that. But as you saw the game play out, he had the relatively long field goal. I think it was a 40-something yarder that put us up by 6. And so you could sort of say, and that was following that third down run that you talked about, John, the 3rd and 6 or 7 I do believe right there, for whatever reason, they decided they wanted to play it safe for whatever reason and decided, well, if we don't get it, we'll kick the field goal. I do believe that.
Well, I'm just going to say that at the end, between the end of the first half and the end of the game, y'all, we got the full Butch Jones clock management experience on Saturday. Man, he may
Your
be
term was brick by brick.
brick by brick, champions of life, whatever silly thing he's always said. But man, Memphis just, I don't know what, especially at the end of the half, and we're going to take a break and get Dave on here in a second, talk North Texas. You have 2 timeouts, sorry, because they had to burn one early in the first quarter. You have 2 timeouts. You're at about the 40. You've got 2 timeouts, and you've got
it was 2 minutes. He had 2
that's right. It was 2 minutes.
The ball.
And they ran 3 plays. Yeah, I'm not going to say.
Plays.
I'm not going to say what. I'm not going to post what Jeb just said, but he's 100% right. We're going to step aside for just a minute. When we come back, the one and only Dave Barnett will join us as we get set to talk all things North Texas. You're listening and watching Tigers Tonight. We'll be back in just a moment. Looking to get away from it all? Hey, it's John here with Tropical Getaways Travel. And when I'm not following the Tigers, I help families and groups have their next amazing vacation. Maybe you're looking for a cruise, or maybe it's an all-inclusive resort that you've been dreaming of. Either way, I can help you plan a vacation that fits your budget and your lifestyle. When you're ready to start planning that vacation, give me a call at 901-667-8747. That's 901-667-8747. Or you can visit my website at tropicalgetaways.net. Let's start planning your next amazing vacation. And welcome back in, everybody, to Tigers Tonight. John Maddox, Larry Marley, Bryan Moss. We have the privilege now of being joined by the voice of the Mean Green of North Texas. You've probably seen his work on ESPN as well, the one and only Dave Barnett. Dave, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I've never been described as a privilege to talk to, so that's great.
So, Dave, let's get started here. A rough Saturday afternoon and evening for North Texas out in the desert in UNLV. Gave up a lot of rushing yards. Seth Littrell did not get off to a good start last year. It's not going great this year. What's kind of the general mood around the program right now?
Well, disappointment, obviously, from turning a really close game at halftime at UNLV into a blowout loss. The things that didn't go well, particularly 3rd down and 4th down, were things that went really well for this team last year. Last year's team started out as a typical Seth Littrell air raid offense. He came from the Hal Mummy, Mike Leach school of offense, and there were so many injuries at receiver. Out of 16 potential receivers at one point, they were down to 6 last year. And so basically, by necessity, they completely changed the team's personality at mid-season, which is something you rarely see work, and much less work well, and it worked incredibly well. They swept the table. As soon as they decided we're a power running team, that's what the strength of this group is. Up front, the offensive line, a lot of experience. And 4 pretty interchangeable running backs who are all back this year. They lost DeAndre Torrey, and he ran for 1,200 yards last year, but this group will easily, as a group, surpass that and more. And so, they were just able to steamroll opponents last year up until their bowl game. This year started out as it looked like potentially the best of both. They opened at UTEP, which had sold out the Sun Bowl. That hadn't happened since Texas played there in 2008, and really dominated the second half, one going away. And it was the best balance that had shown in a long time between passing and running. So that was the momentum they came into a game at home against SMU, and SMU just turned it into a track meet, and it was never really competitive. So they bounced back from that and had an FCS opponent in Texas Southern, won that easily. And again, that led to expectations that it would be at least a competitive 4 quarters at UNLV, and the first 2 quarters very competitive. The second half, UNLV started using their quarterback, Doug Brumfield, as a running threat, and 12 carries and 100 yards. Their top running back, Aiden Robbins, over 200 yards. So they never really dealt with them. And what really turned the game was unsuccessful 3rd and 4th down opportunities. So that's what everybody will be looking at this week, is trying to play 4 quarters against another outstanding quarterback that everybody here is very familiar with. Wasn't that long since Seth Tennigan had Denton Ryan in the state championships. And just to cut down on their own errors, some of them, Seth admits, were coaching errors, not having right package in on some of the 4th downs. Some of it were just player errors, and they're not a good enough team to overcome that against equal or better competition. So I think that's really what everybody's going to be looking at this week. How clean will the execution be? Because this is an opponent where you just can't overcome too many mistakes.
You had Grant Canal transfer from Memphis to North Texas. I was interested, how's that quarterback battle going? In the fall, Austin obviously won, but what have you seen from Grant so far this year?
Well, I mean, he's only been in very briefly at the end of one blowout loss against SMU, and basically just in there handing the ball off, and then played quite a bit more in the second half of a blowout win against Texas Southern. And you could see in that game, why Arizona wanted him and started him, and why Memphis wanted him as a transfer, and why Seth wanted him down here. 6'6" at quarterback is not a usual look. Seth said the only quarterbacks he's ever coached who were anywhere near that big both went on to have good long careers, Nick Foles being one of them at Arizona. But in terms of him running the offense in a key situation where the game is still up for grabs, haven't seen that yet. In August, you could again see, the physical skills that are there. But what happened really is Austin Aune just really improved over the offseason. And he has not given Grant any openings at this point to even think about a quarterback change. Austin is up near the top nationally in touchdown passes, way up near the top in yards per completion. They're throwing it downfield about 16 yards per completion. Big change from last year. And I just asked Seth, in fact, this evening, is there a point where he hopes to get Grant in just maybe to take advantage of his knowledge of the Memphis defensive system? And he just batted that right away. He says, no, that's not how it works. As long as we've got a quarterback playing well and who's healthy, then, he's going to get the snaps. So if Grant gets in, I'm sure he would love to. He would love to show the Memphis fans, what they were missing by him sitting last year. I don't know if that'll happen. But I'm sure he's hoping, even as we speak, that he gets a chance to go out there.
Well, speaking of Austin Aune, and the fact that, and I'm really excited because I'm actually going to see a quarterback who's almost my age playing. So I'm really excited about that. No, all kidding aside. He's only 29. But that isn't that for college. That's extremely old. How does, and by the way, we haven't seen this since whatever that movie with Scott Bakula was a long time ago.
Necessary.
Necessary roughness, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but seriously, how does a 29-year-old? I mean, I played college football, so I know if we had a 29-year-old dude in the locker room, it would have been odd for us. How does he fit in that locker room?
really well. He is believed to be the oldest starting quarterback in Division I football history, as far as we're able to track that down at age 29. That being said, first of all, he rolls with all the obvious slings and arrows about grandpa and old man and all that, and just has fun with it. And his teammates know why he came back to football, because he, was a second-round draft pick by the Yankees, got a nice big check that he's still living off of, because he's married and has a little baby daughter now. So that's widely known that his athleticism was such that he was that high a draft pick by the Yankees, the Aaron Judge class. And then it's I think just a matter of his personality. He's got the type of personality where when leadership is needed, he's there to provide it, but he's not going to lord it over anybody and, give it right back to someone who's 18, So, the only time it comes up, his age, is all in a positive context, that he takes the kidding, gives it right back. And he lends maturity to the locker room, obviously, that nobody else can provide.
Yeah, the only guy I could think of that was even close, but I think he was like 26, and that was Chris Winkie that played at Florida State. And then I swear Daryl Hackney was at UAB for 47 years. But
well, Brandon, Brandon
Whedon, yeah.
They went to Oklahoma State and then made it, to the NFL. So it's not unheard of. It's just the fact that Austin didn't come back just for a year or two,
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to tell these days, but I think he would even have eligibility next season if he chose to play. I can't imagine that he will, but I think if he wanted to, he could probably pursue it. But I think, back to Grant Gunnell, this is expected to be his team beginning next year, if not at any point this year.
So let's move to the other side of the ball. Again, this team that really struggled against the run last week, struggled with the running quarterback Brumfeld. What type of defense can Memphis expect to see on Saturday?
Well, I'm excited to see that too, because this has not been the defense that Phil Bennett put together last year. To go back farther than that, 2 years ago, this was among the worst defenses in FBS football. Could not really stop anybody. Played Appalachian State in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and there were 3 consecutive carries in that game that all went 60 to 70 yards. Just couldn't stop anybody. So Phil Bennett takes over the defense, and he is as experienced a defensive coach as there is in college football, and just made some, I think, simple but difficult demands on players that maybe they hadn't had placed on them before, and the results were they were the most improved defense in the country statistically, and they had a lot of ways to improve. But they cut points allowed by 2 touchdowns a game. They cut yards allowed, almost in half. And we've not seen that same improvement carry over so far this year. Not forcing turnovers. They've recovered a couple of fumbles. They have yet to intercept a pass. In fact, you have to go back to the middle of last season to find the last interception by a defensive back. The linebackers got a couple late last year. So that's number one. They're giving up too many long drives, not getting off the field on 3rd down and occasionally on 4th down. And so, that now is putting a lot of pressure on the offense. The offense gets out there and plays tempo, but comes up with a 3 and out. The defense is right back on the field. That hasn't been going well. And I'm sure that's what Memphis will try to do, is just, grind out long drives, because this defense so far is bending and occasionally breaking at points where they really weren't last year. It's mostly the same people back. So everybody's kind of scratching their heads. These are mistakes that weren't happening last year, and it's basically the same cast of characters.
So I'll get straight to the point. Seth Littrell was 1 quarter away, most likely, from being fired last year. I think you would agree with that, or at least it was trending in that direction. And he ended up surviving. how hot is the seat for Seth this year?
Well, it's the same as any coach, who is trying to get back in the win column. His second and third year, 9 wins apiece, won a division right off the bat as soon as he took the job, and they haven't been able to follow up on that. And no one feels that more than Seth, and he's very open about it. As most coaches will tell you, they put more pressure on themselves than any fan or group of fans ever could. I think what's working in his favor at this point is how he turned things around last year, once conference play started. And this is the last non-conference game this year. So, even if this goes as badly as UNLV did last week, I think it's set up for a complete reset. And if they do as well in Conference USA this year, then, I think he's fine. But he definitely, he's one of the younger head coaches of the country, but he knows how this business works. And to have another below 500 season, without a division championship at least, and without winning a bowl, they get to a bowl almost every year, have yet to win a bowl. So those are the goals that are going to determine Seth's future.
I want to ask about our good friend who used to be at Memphis, Ren Baker. I think he's been there 6 years now. What has he meant to North Texas, and what improvements have you seen out of the university under his leadership?
Well, a lot. I think the hiring of Ren was the president, President Smotrys, saying, okay, well, we want to elevate athletics to a higher level than it has been at traditionally here. Kind of turn it from a mom and pop outfit a little bit to the way that the bigger programs are run. For instance, making a radio deal with Learfield as opposed to cutting their own deal with certain stations and certain sponsors. Learfield's bringing in more money. That's number one. He got fundraising for one of the best indoor practice facilities in the country that opened now 3 years ago. Now, his push is to expand the athletic center, more offices for, more coaches, for academic counselors, people like that, expand the weight room. What everybody wants to know is, are you ever going to add baseball? Because almost every school in Conference USA and the AAC, they play baseball as well, and North Texas got rid of it years ago. But what he always says is, my emphasis is on maximizing what our current coaches for our current programs need. And so when he got here, that was modernize the Super Pit and, more offices, because there are now more basketball coaches and assistant coaches than there were when that place opened 50 years ago. So things like that. Some enhancements to Apogee Stadium. He got a long-awaited stadium finally built for soccer and track and field. Track and field had no home meets for years. And now they've got a really nice facility. So I think that's been it. It's been a matter of bringing the overall program and the expectations of athletics up to the level where they really should be for a university like this. I mean, there's 45,000 students, freshman enrollment up 19% this year in this dynamic area, Dallas-Fort Worth. And so, it's a matter of just taking advantage of the resources and the people who are banding together, and Ren is bringing them into the program and figuring out ways for them to contribute. So, and then he's hired some really excellent coaches. He got Grant McCaslin 3 straight years they won in Conference USA. He got Rodney DeLong for softball. Softball took Oklahoma State right to the end of the regional this past year. Won the Conference USA tournament. So really, it's that. I think at this point, he would tell you he really is hoping to get football going and have a big, huge, successful season for football. See what that does to the overall enthusiasm about sports.
It's funny because, a lot of people I don't think realize how many ties the two programs have. Johnny Jones was our basketball coach in a rough situation. He ends up at North Texas. Gosh, Seth, you mentioned that earlier. Seth played at Denton Ryan, and now he's quarterback at Memphis. And Grant Canal transfers from Memphis North Texas.
Coach Dickey.
Yeah, Daryl. I was trying to think. Daryl Dickey's the coach there. But next year, that kind of even comes more to the forefront. This is the last question before we let you go. North Texas making the move, and they're going to step up in competition with the AAC. So, what is kind of the I think Ren's probably done a real good job of that. Like it's a big preparation. Like Memphis, when that happened for us, we kind of got thrown in the fire. Justin kind of got thrown to the wolves there a little bit. But so what does that mean in terms of North Texas stepping up their game from a budgetary standpoint to know that they're going to have to compete with some bigger schools?
Well, I mean, that's it. And that's what Ren is trying to drive home, that, this is great. We're moving up. This is a league we should compete very well in across the board. But that doesn't come free. And so, it's a matter of making your fan base aware that, the schools that really do well across the board in sports, it costs money. And he's been, very successful. Every fundraising goal he has set so far, he has reached. And, hopefully somewhere down the line, there'll be enough money there to start baseball back up again. But that's very well known. I think, for people as old as me, what's going to be enjoyable is being back in the conference with the schools that North Texas competed with in the Missouri Valley Conference when I was a kid, like Memphis and Wichita State, and Cincinnati was one, but they're moving. So it's a move that the fans are very much looking forward to. I think in most sports, basketball included, I don't think it's going to be a huge leap in terms of competition. And again, we come down to how is this football season going to turn out? If they play up to their capability and end up with a winning season, win a bowl game, then I think that's the momentum that they need to step up in competition next year.
Dave, before we let you go, how do you think Saturday goes at the Liberty Bowl?
I think North Texas plays better defensively, just because I don't think Seth Hennigan's likely to rush for 100 yards. I mean, he's probably capable. So I think it'll be a little more of a traditional challenge. Here's a guy that's thrown it all over the yard and nobody's stopped him yet. So, can the defense get some pressure on him? There haven't been a lot of sacks last year. Sacks were not a problem. Can they force turnovers? This defense is just crying out for one interception. It would be nice. And then offensively, I think long drives, if they can grind it out with the running game, although the Memphis run defense has been really good so far, I think it's that. Get things set up where Austin Audie can throw over the top, maybe get some big gains. I think all that needs to go well for North Texas. I'll be surprised if they struggle with the same things they struggled with last week.
So, Dave, tell Memphis fans how they can follow you this week leading up to the game.
Well, our broadcasts, like all your field broadcasts, are on the Varsity Network app. So you can download that, the App Store, and then just go to North Texas Football. I don't tweet all that much. If you want to be a follower, it's Dave_L_Barnett.
Dave, thanks for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Enjoyed it. Great
Thanks
talk.
a lot.
Thanks, Dave.
So that's Dave Barnett from North Texas, and he said all the things I think we expected to hear, about how the defense is going to play better, and Austin Awney is going to, hopefully get the ball down the field. But Larry, North Texas is in for a monumental challenge on Saturday, and I don't mean any disparaging remarks about the fine folks in Las Vegas, but Memphis ain't no UNLV.
No, and let me be very clear. They're coming up to face one of the best passing offenses in the country, certainly in the G5. And I don't think there's any question about that. No, as he put it, nobody stopped our passing offense. And I think they're in for, as you put it, a really big challenge. I have a prediction. I made this prediction earlier this year and I was wrong, but I'm going to make this prediction right now. We have a 100-yard rusher this week. You okay, John? You gonna be okay?
Wow, I'm a little stunned. Bryan, on to you.
What was the question? That threw me off.
Larry got both of us here. Just kind of your general thoughts on the game, and then we'll do predictions here in just a second.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be, in my opinion, a higher scoring game because I think there's some things North Texas can do, especially with Austin Ani. I think he can pick apart Memphis if they're not playing up to par, defensively. So I think Greg Rubin, Quindell Johnson has really got to be on their toes because Austin Ani is the type of quarterback that can pick them apart. So I think it's going to be a fun and exciting game, and I think it's going to be higher scoring. I can't remember what I know it's Memphis is 11-point favorite, but I don't know what the over under is for the.
It was 65.5.
I think it may go over. Well, I don't know. I think I would go over.
Get out the sledgehammer, baby, and hammer that over. So, yes, and that is for informational purposes only. We here at Tigers Tonight and Tiger Sports Report do not judge nor condone betting on any athletic endeavors. But yes,
it's legal.
All right, moving on. It's 11. The line is North Texas plus 11.5, and the over. I think it was 65.5 when I looked earlier today. But along those lines, and this is totally off subject, did you guys see the Rutgers Iowa over under? 34.5.
Yeah, take the under. As a Rutgers guy, take the under.
And I'm just thinking these two teams could play 2 straight weeks and not hit the over. Now, watch.
When you watch Rutgers games, Bryan, I mean, just out of curiosity, do you like have a coffee IV? I mean, how do you stay awake for that? I mean, it's like literally watching grass grow. I mean, if as much as they move up and down the field, does one side of the field the grass grow higher? Because they never go to the other side.
We're not going to continue to. We're not going to continue to slander the State University of New Jersey.
Yeah, Sanjay.
Yeah. So, one other thing before we go here. Oh, actually, let's do predictions first. Let's see, 2:30. Hey, 3 hours and 13 minutes last week, boys and girls. John Maddox will take that all day long and twice on Sunday, as long as the games don't get till Sunday. So let's see, 2:30, actually 2:37 or 2:33 kickoff, 3.5 hours, 6:05 p.m. What do you think? 6:05 p.m. The scoreboard will say.
I've got it 51-35 Memphis. I think Bryan's right. I think this is a high-scoring game. Memphis is going to put a lot of points on the board. I know that, and I'll be honest with you, I think Cramsey is hitting his stride as a play caller. He really seems to understand this team. The only question I have is defensively, if we get more stops, this game may get away, and then we may not get to that point. But if they keep scoring, yeah, I think we hit the half century mark this weekend.
For me, I'm going to go Memphis 45, North Texas 28. It's a safe bet. Memphis gets a 100-yard rusher. But let's say a bold prediction. We could do that every week too. A bold prediction for me. I'm going to say there's going to be a defensive touchdown, whether it be a interception return for a touchdown, a fumble return. I think there's going to be a defensive touchdown for Memphis.
All right, Larry. So you have the 100-yard rusher. B's got the defensive touchdown. Oh, let's see. What could I predict? Because last week I predicted that Gabe Rogers would score a touchdown. That did not go well. We get a safety. Let's just go with that. Because here, and I know everybody's like, well, how can you? Because here's what I'm thinking. You've got a punter that can place the ball, and North Texas has struggled at times on offense. So if you get field position right, because we almost got a safety this week, because one more kick and that ball's in the end zone and probably out of the back of the end zone on that last play. So I'm going to say that we get a safety this week because But as far as predictions, I think this is the one that Memphis just kind of blows the wheels off. I think probably 42-10, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think it's going to be a case where we just literally and figuratively, we just blitz them early and get out to a big lead and get the backup some time. Grant Canal will play. That'll be my other prediction, that he will play in this game. And boy, would nothing be sweeter than for the pick six to be on a ball he throws. How much irony would be built in there. So before we go, Bryan, what have we got over at TSR this week?
Well, we will have the one thing I think fans are liking is every Friday I do a Flashback Friday where we'll take a look at the starters from Memphis and the starters for their opponent, what their high school ranking was coming out of high school. So I'll have that again this Friday.
And I'll have later this week, I'll have the three big plays from the previous week. And I did earlier this week, I did a by the numbers, kind of a statistical look at both teams, how they stack up. I can start to do that now because we've got, 2 or 3 games in the system, and, the numbers will kind of start to even out. Quick programming note, the next, of course, we've got Saturday at 2:30, the next game, Saturday, October 1st against Temple, just as I predicted, will be an 11 a.m. start on ESPNU. And then after that, we have a Friday night game. So we won't have to worry about game times for a few weeks here going forward. We're actually at East Carolina the next week. So big week for Memphis to kind of stay in command and control of this game, because you've got this little stretch right here of 3 very winnable games. Although the Houston game looks super winnable now at this point, they have not played very well and got roughhoused by Kansas on Saturday.
Fist fights on the sidelines.
Yeah, I saw
Couldn't
that.
have to do a better team.
That's right. The flagship is Cougan it, as we like to say. Before we go, I'm not going to get on too long of a tangent of this, but I shared an article on Twitter today where I'm sure what everybody will tell is, oh, you took it out of context, or that's not what he meant. But in this article, Mike Oresco, and Larry's rolling his eyes already, Mike Oresco said, we need schools like Memphis and USF to step up. And let me not disparage the fine folks in that directionally challenged school in Tampa, Florida. I think I just did disparage them. For those who don't know, South Florida, University of South Florida is in Tampa, which is
north of Central Florida. But anyway, we're not going
to go into all that. But my question to Commissioner Oresco is simply this: what more could you expect from what everybody's calling the remnant, which is kind of disrespectful in and of itself? But to say that about Memphis, who has more wins since 2014 than any other AAC school, including league darling Central Florida, we also have the highest non-G5 winning percentage than any other school that's played at least 20 games in the G5. Now, granted, it's like, I think 38% I saw today, but it's better than everybody else. Memphis has been to an NCAA tournament. Memphis has won the NIT. Guys, I don't know what else, what could have been meant by that other than, hey, you need to step up and pick up and move your crap to Florida or move your crap to Texas and be a school there. Because I just don't understand why you would say that. And also snuck in that article that I thought was very, very interesting. ESPN extended our deal, and it somehow, I guess I didn't hear about it, or, I've had life in the way, but extended the deal and, quote, kept us whole, which means the same money, but it's actually a dilution because you're going to add 3 more teams than the teams that are leaving. So is he saying that we're going to make the same money, or we're going to cover the extra money and everybody's still going to get the $6 million? Because that just kind of didn't make sense to me. And in our media-driven world, I'm shocked that I hadn't heard that until today. But I don't know what that means. Hey, if we're whole, good news. I can't say anything about the TV deal, but man, that just, and I guess again it's because I had a bad day. But man, that whole Memphis and USF need to step up. Just, it's stuck in my craw a little bit because of all the schools that he could have mentioned, Memphis has stepped up more and have taken more bullets for this conference, like the whole Hawaii fiasco last year. We weren't supposed to go to Hawaii. That was supposed to be, I think, Tulsa's spot. And we kind of stood up and took one for the team, as we've done 3 or 4 other times. And it really struck me the wrong way to hear a commissioner say something like that.
I'll add one quick thing to this, and I didn't see the article till you mentioned it to me, but I'm going to add this about the AAC and the fact that if you look at the way the conference is going to be reconfigured right now, with Houston and Cincinnati leaving, along with UCF, nobody is going to be the standard bearer anymore than Memphis right now. Not just from a basketball, but football as well. I mean, there's nobody. You look around. Yes, USF. They need to. They're on a down stretch right now.
And no excuse for them not to be competitive in every sport. Just no excuse whatsoever.
They need to step up. But I'm not going to dispute that. But where did Memphis come from out of this? I mean, why not throw something at Tulsa? Throw something at pick somebody else. What the hell else can we do? Seriously, guys. What else can we do?
I think his point, Bryan, was probably Memphis and USF, and I haven't looked at the numbers, and I'm sure somebody will tell me I'm wrong, are probably the 2 biggest markets that'll be left after Houston leaves, and Cincinnati or Cincinnati, Houston. Well, SMU, I guess, would be the biggest market. But hell, if you want to pick on somebody, SMU.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of that trying to play devil's advocate, which, I mean, I still don't agree with what he said, but trying to get into his wacky brain is maybe he sees Memphis is not as good as it was a couple years ago. While that may be true, they're still a heck of a lot better than 80-90% of the teams in the American Conference. I mean, if you're going to say for someone that needs to step up, look who you're bringing in. If you want to talk about someone that needs to step up, you pick Charlotte. I mean, you could have had. I know it. Charlotte brings in the quote unquote, Charlotte TV market.
Nobody cares.
No one cares about that. The Charlotte.
In Charlotte, literally nobody cares about that. It's Clemson, and then maybe occasionally you'll hear something about North Carolina and South Carolina and all that. But I bet you 90%
of the people in Charlotte have no clue that the Charlotte are the 49ers. To me, I think you could have had Appy State, which they come in and they're instant. Conference contenders right away. You could have had the sexy name of, Coastal Carolina. I understand that, but to me, it's a better name than Charlotte. To me, they're just, you could have went in different places than the teams that you're bringing in. So, I think he needs to look into a mirror and say, you need to step up. Because look. I keep going back to that. Look,
Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic.
Yeah.
Come on.
I understand you want to keep a Florida. You want at least 2 Florida teams because of recruiting and things like that. There's not a lot of teams in Florida that you could have grabbed. I kind of understand that one, but to me, the Appy State one, that's one that really bothers me because I really think you could have had someone that come in and really, because look what they did. Who'd they knock off?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. Man, they're going to knock off someone
again.
Should be
North Carolina.
They're going to continue to knock off teams, and that could have been a feather in the cap for the AAC. But now, nope, it's a feather in the cap to the Fun Belt.
Super jealous that we don't get that road trip to Boone every 2 years too. An absolutely just incredibly gorgeous place.
Amazing.
Especially in the fall. But like I said, I had a bad day today and it just really kind of stuck in my craw and rubbed me the wrong way. And then there was another little comment in there about somebody asked him about, Houston's leaving and blah, blah, blah. And did he root for Houston, yada, yada. And he's like, yeah, of course, because it hurts the conference if they lose. I'm thinking, nobody gives pardon my French, nobody gives a shit about Houston. And why is the commissioner rooting for someone? Like that just, again, and I totally misread that probably, but it just kind of got after me a little bit. It's like, the only thing, Bryan, and I think you make a good point with that. The only thing I think he was trying to say is we need Memphis and South Florida because they're our strongest brands. We need them to be better. But he could have said it that way, and it wouldn't have been, taken kind
Agreed.
of across the bow. Because here's my other thing. He's bragging about ESPN, and Ward pointed out that every school is going to get $6 million. I guarantee you this, if Memphis is not in this league, every school ain't getting $6 million. Every school is going to be getting $4 million or $3 million. But by Memphis and the presence they've built, again, most wins in the AAC since 2014. Most wins in the AAC. Jeb pointed out 2 titles, 3 division, 3 championship games, and 8 straight bowl games. If football is the driver, which it is, then what the hell else are you expecting Memphis to do? Like, that's just my overwhelming question of why you say, well, Memphis needs to step up. Well, we've done our stepping up. It's time for somebody else to carry the water.
I'm going to ask this question real fast. UTSA, when they look at the schedule next year, they're going to look to see when they play SMU and when they play Memphis. And you can bet that's what they're looking at. And they're not going to look nothing against these other schools, but they're not going to give a flip more or less when they go play Tulane. Look, I love Tulane. I love going to New Orleans. Everybody loves going to New Orleans, but that's not what their fans are going to look at it going, man, I really want to watch that game.
Yeah.
I really want to go to that game.
How are they going to feel Thursday night in Charlotte, North Carolina at 7, whatever o'clock
in front of 6,600 fans?
Oh, you're being far too generous. But anyway, I didn't want to get off on a tangent, but I did want to kind of get that off my chest because it's been a rough day. Yeah, Jeb just brought up another one. East Carolina, like number one, as Jeb, still one of my favorite quotes of all time when he was describing Greenville, North Carolina. You have to mean to go there. Like there's no accidental, oh, I stumbled into Greenville. That doesn't happen. But anyway, one of the reasons I was in a bad mood is I was actually supposed to do a show next week from a distance further than we've ever done one before. I was going to be in the Dominican Republic, but of course, as everybody's probably heard, Hurricane Fiona tore through there a little bit unexpectedly on last night.
Somebody get Shrek on this ASP.
Somebody get Shrek under. We're going through our little Disney run here. I think it's Gaston, but the next name storm will be Gaston, which I think it's Gaston though, which is going to right now when it forms, it looks like it's going to swing up Jamaica and possibly get into the Gulf next week. But our thoughts go out to all the people in Puerto Rico got hammered, Dominican got hammered, and Turks and Caicos got it today. Areas that don't typically see a ton of hurricane activity just kind of got hammered a little bit. So thoughts go out to them. Just a brutal situation for folks that don't have a lot of the things that we have here. But anyway, so I was supposed to be there next week, and then I was going to change plans at Jamaica, and now it looks like there's another hurricane. So I was in advance to the fine folks of Cancun, Mexico, because I'm supposed to be there in 2 weeks. So we'll see how that all turns out. But I did want to just give thoughts to them. So that's going to do it for this week. Reminder, over at TSR, we have the 901 special after the 901 game on Saturday, an entire year. And I promise it's better than this. This is one of our many pieces of content we do. Really hyped for basketball too. We got a couple folks that are going to be coming on board for hoops and really excited about all that. So for the best co-hosts in all the land, Larry Marley and Bryan Moss, this is John Maddox signing off, saying we'll see everybody next time.